Alright, so this will be the end of section 2.2. Hopefully I keep it to around a half hour. There's about 10 problems we have to do. The first group of problems want me to find an equation for a line. And to find an equation for a line, I'm going to use the point-slope formula for each of the problems between 39 and 56. Using the point-slope formula just seems to make sense unless it's a special line. And the point-slope formula is y minus y1 equals m times x minus x1. Not sure what's getting on my paper here. So for problem 40, to find the slope of the line that passes through the point negative 4, 1 with a slope of negative 2, I'm going to plug m equal to negative 2 into the formula, and I'm going to plug x1 equal to negative 4 in the formula, and y1 equal to 1 in the formula. x1 and y1 are the x and the y coordinate of the first point that's given. The slope is the m. So for this problem, I'm going to go y minus 1 equals negative 2 times x minus a negative 4. And then I'm going to leave the left side y minus negative 1. Inside the parentheses, I have a double negative. I'm going to make a positive. Still going to leave the left side with my y minus 1. I'm going to clear the parentheses by going negative 2 times x and negative 2 times 4. That gives me y minus 1 equals negative 2x minus 8. Now I'm going to add 1 to both sides. This is going to give me my answer for problem 38. This is the equation of the line that I need to find. It's going to be y equals negative 2x minus 7. Didn't get into a lot of theory here. I'm assuming that at some point in your past you had to find equations for lines, and my videos get so long I try to crunch the theory down if I can. So you should be able to do 39. Move on to 41 and 42. For 42, I'm going to use m equal to 1/3. I'm going to use x1 equal to 12. I'm going to use y1 equal to negative 2. And I'm going to use the formula y minus y1 equals m times x minus x1. And for the y1 side, I go y minus a negative 2. I have a double negative, so I pick up an extra parentheses. On the right side, I get 1/3 times x minus 12. Left side, double negative, I make a positive. Right side, I go 1/3 times x and 1/3 times negative 12. 1/3 times x, I'm just going to write as 1/3 x. 1/3 times negative 12, I could multiply the 1 and the negative 12 and leave the 3 in the denominator. That would give me negative 12 over 3, and negative 12 over 3 reduces to negative 4. So after my 1/3 x, I'm going to put a minus 4. I just need to solve for y. I'm going to minus 3 from both sides. On the left side, the 3's are going to cancel. On the right side, the negative 3 and the negative 4 combined, they're both negative, so I add them and keep them negative, and I get y equals 1/3 x minus 7. That should be just like 41. 43 and 44 are a little bit tricky. They're a little bit tricky because they don't give me a point. And 44, for m, I can use negative 4. But I'm not given a point, but I'm given the name of a point, and I know y-intercepts are always 0 comma some number. So in hiding, when it said the y-intercept is negative 1, that implies that it passes through the point 0, negative 1, because that is the y-intercept of negative 1. That is it as a point. So I'm going to use x1 equal to 0 and y1 equal to negative 1. And again, I'm going to use the y minus y1 equals m times x minus x1 formula. I'm going to go y minus a negative 1 equals negative 4 times x minus 0. I get a double negative on the left side that I'm going to turn to a plus. On the right side, this really just simplifies to be negative 4 times x, and I won't need the parentheses anymore because x minus 0 is x. Now I'm going to minus 1 from both sides. This is going to give me the answer for problem 44, y equals negative 4x minus 1. All right, 5 minutes. I'm kind of humming through this maybe a little bit too fast. So you can always stop the video and rewind it if I go a little fast. Let me try to slow down maybe a little bit. 45 and 46 are talking about parallel lines. Parallel lines have the same slope. When I look at problem 46, I see a point, so I can use x1 equal to negative 5 and y1 equal to 1. It doesn't give me an m, but it gives me an equation of a line that it's parallel to. And lines that are parallel have equal slopes. And that little bit of information is supposed to help me figure out the m. So even though it didn't tell me the slope of the line explicitly, it kind of hinted at it. It says it's parallel to the line y equals 3x minus 2. I'm supposed to know that lines that are parallel have equal slopes, and this line has a slope of 3 because it's solved for y, the number in front of the x is a slope. So the line that it's parallel to has a slope of 3, which means my line must have a slope of 3 as well. So this line is a parallel line. It's in the form y equals mx plus b, where the m is 3, so the slope of that line is 3. My line is parallel. Parallel lines have equal slopes. My line must have a slope of 3. Now I'm going to use the y minus y1 equals m times x minus x1 formula and go y minus 1 equals 3 times x minus a negative 5. Double negative is going to go positive, so it's going to give me y minus 1 equals 3 times x plus 5. Clear the parentheses by multiplying through by 3. Gives me y minus 1 equals 3x plus 15. Add 1 to both sides, and that will give me my answer of y equals 3x plus 16. All right, so that should be real similar to 45. 47 and 48 are kind of duplicate problems with just nastier slopes. In problem 48, it tells me I'm trying to find a line that's parallel to this line. This line, because it's in y equals mx plus b form, has a slope of negative 2/3. My line, because it's parallel, it has the same slope, so the slope of my line is going to be negative 2/3. And I'm going to plug in x1 equal to 5 and y1 equal to 1 into the formula y minus y1 equals m times x minus x1. So now I'm going to go y minus 1 equals negative 2/3 times x minus 5. That's going to give me y minus 1 equals, I'm going to go negative 2/3 times x, and that's just negative 2/3 x. And when I do negative 2/3 times negative 5, I multiply the negative 2 and negative 5 and get positive 10. I leave the 3 in the denominator, so that multiplication gives me a positive 10/3. Now I need to add 1 to both sides. When I add 1 to the left side, I get the y, which is part of my answer. On the right side, the negative 2/3 x isn't going to be changed when I add 10/3 plus 1. Now I need to deal with fractions. If you can't add fractions, you could do the 10/3 plus 1 just like this. Turn your calculator on, clear, go 10 divided by 3 plus 1. That's 10/3 plus 1. It's going to give me a decimal. On this calculator, if your calculator gives you a decimal, hit the math button and then enter twice. It'll make that decimal into a fraction. So I'm going to go math, enter, enter, and that's going to give me 13/3. If you want to do this without a calculator and get the answer of y equals negative 2/3 x plus 13/3, to do 10/3 plus 1, you have to think of it as 10/3 plus 1 over 1. And that 1 over 1 you can multiply by 3 over 3. And that would give me 10/3 plus 3/3. And that's the 13/3. That's the B for this problem. Absolutely can do fraction work on your calculator, or if you'd like to do it by hand, you can do it by hand. All right, 49 and 50 are similar but harder. So it gives me some information about a line that's going to help me figure out the slope. It says my line is going to be perpendicular to the line y equals 3x minus 2. Perpendicular lines don't have equal slopes. They have slopes that are reciprocals with opposite signs. We usually say they're negative reciprocals. So getting the m for my problem, just like the last two problems, it wasn't given to me explicitly. I had to figure it out. I have to for this problem. The given line has a slope of 3, which I can really think of as 3/1. My line has to have a slope that's the reciprocal. The reciprocal of 3/1 is 1/3 with opposite signs. This has a positive slope. My line needs to have a negative slope. So if you're given the equation of a perpendicular line, you're going to find its slope, take the reciprocal, and flip the sign. That will be the slope of the perpendicular line. So now for my equation, my slope is going to be negative 1/3. My x1 is going to be negative 5. My y1 is going to be 1. And I'm going to go y minus y1 equals m times x minus x1. This is going to give me y minus 1 equals negative 1/3 times x minus a negative 5. This double negative goes positive, so I'm going to get y minus 1 equals negative 1/3 times x plus 5. That's going to give me y minus 1 equals negative 1/3 x when I multiply the negative 1/3 times x. When I multiply the negative 1/3 times 5, I'm just going to multiply the negative 1 and the 5 and get minus 5/3. Now I have to add 1 to both sides. On the left side, I'm going to get y, which is going to be the beginning of my answer. On the right side, I get negative 1/3 x, and negative 5/3 plus 1. If I can't do that, I go negative 5 divided by 3 plus 1 equals math, enter, enter, and I get negative 2/3. So it's going to be negative 1/3 x minus 2/3. To get that without a calculator, I'd have to go negative 5/3 plus 1. And that 1 I'd have to think of as 1/1. Multiply it by 3/3. This is if you don't want to use your calculator to do the fraction work. This would be negative 5/3 plus 3/3, which is going to be negative 2/3. And again, you don't have to do any fraction work by hand. When it comes to adding, subtracting, multiplying, dividing fractions, you're more than welcome to use your calculator. All right, so give 49 a go. All right, so 52. 52, as again, I'm given the equation of a perpendicular line. The given line has a slope of negative 2/3. My line, because it's perpendicular, its slope is going to be the reciprocal with the sign change. The reciprocal of 2/3 is 3/2. The original line had a slope of negative, so my line has a slope of positive. Perpendicular lines have slopes with opposite signs. So if the given line has a negative slope, your line has a positive slope, the perpendicular line does, and the reciprocals. And it gives me the point, so I'm going to put in x1 equal to 5, y1 equal to 1, and go y minus y1, which is y minus 1, equals m 3/2 times x minus x1, which is x minus 5. It's going to give me y minus 1. I'm going to go 3 halves times x, which is 3 halves x. And then I'm going to do 3 halves times minus 5. Just going to multiply that 3 and that minus 5 and get minus 15 halves. I'm going to add 1 to both sides. That's going to give me y equals to 3 halves x. Let me just do this real quickly. Minus 15 divided by 2 plus 1, which is what I'm trying to do here. And then math, enter, enter. I get negative 13 halves. I won't even do that by hand. But you certainly could. You'd go negative 15 halves plus 2 halves to get that negative 13 halves. So my answer to problem 52 is y equals 3 halves x minus 13 halves to work just like your problem 51. 51, your line is going to have a slope of negative 9/4. You take the reciprocal of that. Since it's positive, your perpendicular line is going to have a negative slope. I shoved 2 problems on a screen for you to do, and I'm only going to do one because there's only one problem like this for me. To do 53, 54, 55, and 56, I have an x1 and a y1. x1 is 5 for me in 54. y1 is 2 because of the x and y coordinate of the first point. Turns out that if I used the second point for my x1 and y1, I'd still get the right answer. But just like the last few problems, I'm not given my slope. When you do problem 53 and when you do problem 55, you're going to have to do work to find your slope. And to find slope, you go y2, which is here, minus y1 over x2 minus x1. And that's going to give me my slope. Here, y2 minus y1 and x2 minus x1 are both 1s, and 1 over 1 is equal to 1. So when I do problem 54, I'm going to make the m equal to 1. And now I'm going to go y minus y1, which is y minus 2, equals m, which is 1, times x minus 5. This is going to give me y minus 2. Now on the right side, I can just drop my parentheses because anything times 1 is itself. Now I'm going to add 2 to both sides. It's going to give me y equals to x minus 3. And that's my answer for 54. You should hopefully be able to do both 53 and 55 without me explaining them. Hopefully you'll do exactly the same thing. You'll find the slope, and then after you find the slope, you will just use the formula y minus y1 equals m times x minus x1. There's actually a problem 56, 57, 58, and 59 that are word problems. Never ask those word problems on a test. And I'm going to just delete them and you're never going to see them. We'll just end the section right here at problem 55.